Sam is a digital artist who creates stunning illustrations and paintings with a unique and recognizable style. One of the things that I love about Sam's art is how it can capture a mood and emotion with just a few brush strokes. Sam's art always leaves me feeling inspired and ready to draw. He is known for his vivid colors, bright and bold color palette. So today I wanted to try and study Sam's art and try and replicate his drawing to understand his style and learn from his painting. So what makes his style so unique? So if we look at his paintings, he really uses very light and very saturated colors. And in this painting here, we can really see some of the color choices that he's made and where they land in the saturation and the value. So when we look at the facial features, what makes his style unique is the way he draws really big eyes, really small and compressed noses, and the overall face structure sometimes has very sharp angles and very narrow chin. And these facial features together gives it his unique style. So when we look at the sketch phase, the sketch is done very quickly, as you have seen in some of his videos. And I think the reason he can do this is because he really understands the fundamentals and really knows how to draw the portrait with the correct proportions very well. And we can really see that when we go back to his old art and see some of his old paintings on his Instagram, similar to these paintings that he has here. So because he understands how to do realistic paintings very well and understood that very well, he was able to simplify it into his own style and do the sketch in very fast and quick way. So I tried to do something similar. My first attempt at doing a sketch, I tried to do it in less than 5 minutes using his style, and this was really the attempt that I had. So obviously not what I wanted it to be. But I decided to give myself another shot and try and do it again with a little bit more time. So give myself maybe 20 to 30 minutes, and I was able to do 2 other paintings in a much better way using his style. So before he starts painting, he creates a new layer and has the sketch layer on top, and he really paints on a new layer which he puts under the sketch layer. He simply starts with a round brush with opacity control but no size control. So then he really puts in the different color variations in his painting, but he puts it in a very rough way. He doesn't really try and blend too much or does too much rendering. He really just puts those things in. He mentions a lot in his videos that you really don't need custom brushes and you can just do everything with a round brush. And you can see in my attempts here in the first few that I tried to follow that step and it really turned out well. So he does these very well, and then he reduces the size of his brush and starts adding some of the details like the eyelashes, the eyebrows, and the hard edges. Something that he does afterwards is really he goes back on a new layer and adds some of his line art back into his painting. And I don't really recommend going back and increasing the opacity of your sketch layer because he has a lot of rough things in there, so he keeps that layer on low opacity, and sometimes you can even get rid of it, but adding extra layer for just adding more sketch lines or line art into specific parts of the painting. So now let's jump into a fully detailed study of a fully rendered piece of Sam. So this is something different and new, and I've seen him talk about this a few times in some of his videos, is maybe start with a background first. And part of the reason for this is that the background will determine some of the colors that you would use for the rest of the painting, for example, the reflections, the light, and the mood of the painting. And to do a simple background, he has this very simple sheet that works very well. So think of a scenario. In this example, we have a green background, for example, trees or brushes. So it's a mixture of green and yellowish colors. So using a round brush, you just add these colors in different areas, and then using the Gaussian blur tool, you can blur the background or this layer, and then suddenly you have this nice background that will work with your painting. So now that we have a rough background ready for us, we can jump into the sketch. So very simple, very basic, very few lines, try and have it as basic as possible. Then using a hard round brush, add the main colors with no opacity control, really just blocking in the colors. And this is done on a separate layer like we mentioned before. You can see here that the colors that I'm using are very saturated, bright, and colorful. Then you can turn on the opacity control and add some color variation using big brush strokes. So also we're adding here the main light and shadow shapes in the different areas, knowing how and where the light is coming from. When it comes to the lips, he also has a tutorial where he shows you can really use a soft airbrush to do the lips. The lips shouldn't have a lot of hard edges to define it too much. You can simply use the soft airbrush to color it in, and then for the areas that you want to have some hard edges, like the highlights on top of the lip, you can reduce the size of the brush or pick a different brush and add those highlights in afterwards. But using the soft airbrush gives it a really nice look. So now that you have the main colors in and the different color variations from the environment and the light and shadow in, you can start blending using a few different ways. If you want, you can use the smudge tool or just blend by color picking and using the brush to just blend. And remember that during this stage, you really don't need to worry about texture and you can just keep using the round brush. And don't be afraid to redo a part that you're not happy with. For example, I redid the eyes here. Always play with soft and hard edges, and then also remember to add the line art back into some areas that you want to define and emphasize. For example, the shape of the face. Another thing is that the highlights usually have a hard edge. So you can paint the highlight in different areas and erase it to give it the hard edges or the shapes that you want. Something else that I like to do is at different stages of painting, I like to make a copy of all the layers and then merge them together. And this will allow me to make adjustments to the entire painting, like playing with the curve tool or using the liquify tool to make some tweaks. And then you can follow the same steps with the clothing and other parts of the painting. Again, start with a big brush stroke and just add the main light and shadow, and then slowly move on to smaller brush size and add more and more details. And then when it comes to hair, it is also very simple. Just use large brush strokes to define it using just light and shadow, and you can put in some color variation in there due to the light and shadow. Then this piece also has a couple of necklaces. To do that, you can just draw it or paint it using just the dark color first, and then using a hard round brush, again, just add the reflected highlights onto it. For jewelry, it's good to just have hard edges a lot of times to show the reflection. And then at the end, you can just add a new layer afterwards and add some details like the freckles in this case on the face. And at this stage, you can also just pick a texture brush to add some details if you want in some specific areas. For example, the hair. Finally, you can add some details in the background if you want, like the rain in this example. And then just merge everything and just use the curve adjustment layer to adjust the final colors. I really enjoyed working on this piece and studying Sam's style, and I think I will start incorporating some of his techniques into my paintings. I hope this video was helpful, and let me know who else you want me to do a study of. In the meantime, if you want to see me do a study of raw straws, you can click on the link here. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.